UFC Vegas 69. I'm sure a couple of you young kiddos out there got a little bit of a chuckle out of that. UFC Vegas 69. I know a lot of you guys have been waiting for this event here. So you guys know that Talia Santos did have to withdraw. She had some visa issues. In steps in a legend in women's mixed martial arts, Jessica Andrade. She's coming off a big-time victory just recently. She's taken on the young phenom in Erin Blanchfield. I'm excited for this fight. This fight has major implications for the flyweight division. And other than that, you know, if we're calling it for what it is, this is definitely a lower level card, but you guys know what time it is. We're going to be dissecting every single one of these fights. Just a quick side note, I'm going to try to I'm going to try to break down each of these fights a little bit quicker than usual. You guys, give me your thoughts below. I mean, would you rather these videos be an hour to hour 20 minutes, or would you guys rather them be more around that 40-minute range? Please comment below and let me know. Before we jump into the first fight, real quick, hope you guys like some of the new content that I've been pumping out. If you guys checked out my last video, all of that is nothing. It's just I'm testing a few things out, and it's just a very preliminary type of setup. I'm dabbling with this new program, like I told you guys, so expect big things coming up in the near future. Here in the next couple of weeks, you're going to see this channel completely change up, so hopefully you guys like what you see. Please do catch me on all my social media platforms, on Instagram at MMA Fortune Teller _. You guys can check out all types of cool posts I got coming your way. You know, you guys know I like to post my Monday main card fight matchups. We take the winners from the previous fight card, from the main card, and I recommend who they should be matched up with. You guys go comment under that post and let me know what you guys think about that. Catch me on Twitter at the MMA Teller. And you know, I think that's about it. Let's jump into the first fight. We got a flyweight scrap kicking off the card here. We got Juancamilo Ronderos taking on Clayton Carpenter. Clayton Concrete Carpenter. A lot of you guys are familiar with him from Dana White's Contender Series. As of recently, he's a fighter that came in with a lot of hype. You know, he's one of these new age type of fighters, a young lad that's been in the fight game since he was a very young kid. I mean, you see him over here at BJ Penn. He's over here on the left, I do believe, with his siblings. I mean, you can pretty much consider him a lifelong martial artist. I mean, that's the type of fighter we're talking about. He's a fighter that comes in phenomenal shape. It seems that he's been in phenomenal shape throughout his entire life. You could pull up pictures of him when he was just a very young kid. This is a kid. Let's be you know, honest about it. He's very young. This is a kid that has had dreams to be a UFC champion from the very beginning, and I think that is very powerful. He's a well-rounded fighter. You know, let's talk about the fight that he had on the show. Came in as the favorite against Edgar Chairez, and that fight did play out a little bit closer than I think some people thought that it would have. Clayton Carpenter did go through some adversity in that fight. He had his eye swollen up in that fight, but he did result back to his wrestling, and he got the job done there. He got some takedowns in the second and third rounds and solidified a victory. I think that he showed some real resolve in that fight, facing some early adversity, getting tagged up a little bit on the feet, and using his wrestling, showing he's a well-rounded fighter. I think that his striking is decent. I know he didn't really get to showcase a lot in that fight, but I do think that he's a well-rounded fighter, and I think time will show that. Juancamilo Ronderos, you know, he had his UFC debut with only a couple of pro fights at the time. He had a good amount of amateur fights under his belt, but really a tough task as he made his UFC debut taking on David Dvorak. David Dvorak went in there, made quick work of him, using the grappling to pull off the submission victory, pulling off that rear naked choke very early in the fight. This could be an issue here when you pull up that fight, and even if you look into some of his earlier fights, even fights that he's had victories in, I was kind of questioning his takedown defense and some of his grappling abilities, and I have a feeling that Clayton Carpenter is going to give him a tough time down on the mat. That's kind of the way I see this fight going. I think Carpenter is going to get a submission victory in this fight, possibly a second round sub. I'm kind of sensing maybe Ronderos, you know, dances around. You know, he has that type of style where he looks like he's polished up on the feet. He has good movement, but there's really not a lot going on there. Also, I mean, if you want to note this as well. His fight before coming into the UFC, he did have a split decision victory over Eric Shelton. If you guys remember Eric Shelton from The Ultimate Fighter. So at least it's a recognizable name, because if it wasn't for that fight there, I mean, we would really have some question marks about Ronderos. He's 28 years old, only 2 years older than Carpenter. He's been in the fight game for a while too. If you take a look at when he had his first amateur fight, it was a while ago as well. 2 inches shorter is the Colombian. He will also be at a disadvantage of a 1.5 inch reach for Carpenter. So I'm excited to see how Carpenter looks there, because in his last fight, it seemed that he was a little bit, I don't know if you want to say undersized, but he was a little bit more of the smaller fighter there. So now he comes in with a little bit of a size advantage. And I think that Carpenter is going to handle business here. Like I said, I think he gets the job done. And going down to the mat, I think is where he has success in this fight. So let's take a look at the live line here. Excuse me, Bovada playing some games over here. And Carpenter is currently a -280 favorite with the comeback on Juancamilo at +230. And, the line obviously, decently high on Carpenter, but I think that it is definitely it's an accurate line in my opinion. I think that's where that line should be. Wouldn't be surprised if we see that creep up to the -330 range or whatnot. And I'll say there's more value on a Carpenter line anywhere in that vicinity, as long as it doesn't get out of hand and you see it creeping up towards a -400. I don't know about all that, but Carpenter, I think this is going to be his showcase fight here. AJ, the Ghost Fletcher, taking on Themba Gorimbo, the answer, fighting out of Zimbabwe, 32 years old. You could pull up some of his tape on YouTube, and some of those fights are going to be from some time ago. But one thing that I definitely noticed is that I wasn't overly impressed with anything that I was able to pull up. A wiry fighter. He's decently well-rounded. I mean, he was showing to attack with some subs. He's aggressive on the feet. Throws his strikes very loopy, and that's something that I didn't really like much. AJ Fletcher, I think he'll be more technical with his striking. He's an explosive athlete. He's a well-rounded fighter. Yeah, I mean, there's going to be a major disadvantage with the reach, which is really nothing new for AJ Fletcher. We know that he has very short arms. I mean, you could see it immediately when you take a look at him, but he has made that work throughout his career. I mean, not in his last 2 fights, but, take note, he had the loss to Matthew Semmelsberger and Ange Lusa. I think those are 2 decently talented fighters, and maybe underrated fighters at that. So, kind of take that with a grain of salt. AJ Fletcher is only 26 years old. Look at AJ Fletcher's pops there. So, he has some good genetics. The pops has the little T-Rex arms as well, but they are jacked up, a little reminiscent of Big Papa Pump here. And, I mean, we got to definitely mention the knockout victory he had on Dana White's Contender Series against Leonardo Dimani. That was a beautiful flying knee that he landed. And I do believe that there's potential for AJ Fletcher to put on some more impressive performances like that inside the octagon. The UFC giving him a little bit of a layup here. I mean, if you take a look at the 2 first fighters that he had, like I said, competent UFC fighters. Now he gets this guy Themba. Nice of the UFC to give Themba an opportunity as well. Themba's definitely going to be hungry to capitalize on this opportunity. I think that we got to side with AJ Fletcher here. Like I said, though, AJ Fletcher, a fighter that has put in work with guys like Dustin Poirier from a very young age, fighting out of Louisiana. Everything that I've heard Poirier say, I mean, he's had nothing but rave reviews to say about the kid. And I know that he's as hungry as ever. You take a look at some of his IG posts and you read the captions. I mean, he's absolutely dying to get that first UFC victory, and I think that he's going to get it here. We'll take a look at the betting line on this fight, where we're going to see the Ghost. He's going to be another hefty favorite here. He's going to be a -265 with the comeback on Themba at +215. I expected AJ Fletcher to be obviously the favorite going into this matchup. I'm not really positive if I expected him to creep up near to that -300 line. So you keep an eye on that. Anything from that -250 down, possibly more value on that there if you want to mix it up with the parlay. It's a high line, but my gut really does tell me that Fletcher is going to show up here. So I don't want to say, oh, there's more value on this guy Themba. Also, but keep in mind, like I said, some of these fights I was pulling up on Themba, he was a younger fighter at the time. He was more around 28 years old, 28, 27, 29, around that range. He is 32 now. There is potential that he sharpens some things up. But to me, my gut's telling me AJ Fletcher comes through here and uses his explosiveness and just is more technical, throws more straight shots, and just uses good footwork to get the job done here. Maybe even sneaks in some takedowns here and there, uses his wrestling and grappling abilities as well. AJ Fletcher to get the job done here. Does he get a finish? Keep an eye on that finish. Maybe we see something explosive. Nazim Sadykhov taking on Evan Elder, another talented fighter coming off Dana White's Contender Series. I mean, God, is this the most common theme of what we see throughout all these UFC fight cards these days? So much talent has came through that show. Nazim had the victory over the tough Afghan fighter Ahmad Sial Hassanzada. If you guys remember that. I believe Ahmad was undefeated at the time, and he was finished there by Nazim. Nazim, a southpaw, a fighter that really put some heat into his strikes. Ray Longo, Matt Serra product, sharpening his tools with a lot of high caliber opponents over there, high caliber fighters. You see him shoulder to shoulder with Matt Frivola here. This is a fighter that Ray Longo, the team, has been very, very high on. They're expecting big things from him. I mean, like I said, he is a very dangerous striker. He really, really puts some heat into his shots. This is a fighter that you can expect to go out there and to possibly get that knockout against anybody in the UFC. I truly believe that this is a fighter that oozes confidence, goes out there and throws bombs. You take a look at the last couple of fights he's had, and we're talking about, let's see here, 4 finishes in a row, even sneaking in a rear naked choke victory as well over at Fury FC. We know Matt Serra, obviously, a decorated Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu coach and fighter. I think that they've been working on Nazim's overall game, and I think that he's going to continue to show to be a very well-rounded fighter over time. He's 28 years old. Evan Elder has some wrestling credentials. He's a tough fighter. He was undefeated going into his UFC debut, where he faced off with Preston Parsons, and that was a fight where he lost a unanimous decision. Keep in mind, he's 25 years old. He's still very young. A lot of room for growth to come from Evan Elder. So you got to be a little bit careful here. Do believe Evan's also a southpaw. So we'll have an interesting clash there on the feet. And, my gut's telling me that Evan Elder is going to show some toughness here, and he's going to be willing to engage. But I see Nazim being the fighter that lands that big shot and that capitalizes in those striking exchanges a little bit more so. If Evan Elder tries to push for a takedown, I think Nazim stuffs the takedowns there or works his way back up and eventually does some business in the striking department. I'm taking Nazim Sadykhov to get the job done here. We keep an eye on him moving forward. I think that he is a fighter to keep an eye on. He is somewhat promising, so we'll see how he looks in his UFC debut here. And let's go take a look at the betting line. He is a -170, so nothing crazy going on there. I think a little bit of respect coming back on Evan Elder. People do understand he's a well-rounded fighter. That's a tough dude, and I'm going to say that the value is on Nazim Sadykhov at the -170 line. I just think he's a very talented fighter. I like a lot of the tools that he brings into the cage. He's a fighter that's really gonna go out there and give it his all for your money, right? You put some money on this guy. This isn't a guy that's going to be dancing around and blow a split decision or something like that. This is a fighter that's going to be all gas and looking to end the fight. And even if he doesn't get that finish, this is a fighter that's pushing the pace and could take rounds like that. The judges love to see that type of aggression. Give me Nazim Sadykhov to land a big shot. We'll go with the finish there. So maybe in the second round as well. Ovince St. Preux taking on Philipe Lins. OSP, about to be 40 years old. He is coming off a victory, but let's be real about the situation. He's coming off a victory against Shogun Rua. We saw how Shogun just looked in his last fight against the Ukrainian, relatively green fighter. And, OSP, in my opinion, should have went out there and got a finish over Shogun if he really had anything left in the tank. I really was not impressed with that performance. You take a look at his match against Tanner Boser. He was finished there. Finished against Jamall Hill. Obviously, Hill is the champion now, so that you kind of analyze that fight a little bit differently. Before that, he had the counter knockout against Alonzo Menefield. We know that OSP is a fighter that really has fallen in love with his counter strikes. I mean, this is a guy that sits on the back foot and really tries to clip his opponents with those types of shots. And he'll whip the head kick up there as well. A southpaw. If you think back to one of his biggest fights, if you remember when John Jones was making a return from one of his layoffs, you know how John Jones always has these layoffs. OSP put up a very closely contested match against John Jones at the time. People were really impressed to see that. I mean, OSP, we also have to mention the OSP choke, formerly known as the Von Flue choke. OSP definitely has taken that sub over, pulls it off beautifully. He's always live for a sub like that, but how live is he for that type of sub these days? Maybe I should retract that statement a little bit. If I'm going to cut to the chase here, I haven't been pleased with what I've seen from him. I'm kind of questioning where he's at in his career. I think he's just collecting some paychecks on his way out. I really do believe that we're going to begin to see the end of his career here. Well, on the other hand, Philipe Lins putting in work over at American Top Team. He's 37 years old. Had a little hiatus over in the PFL where, I don't know why Instagram's messing with these videos here, but over in the PFL, he actually had a good amount of success there. I want to pull this up real quick. Knockouts over Josh Copeland, Jared Rosholt, the Division I wrestler there. Also pulling off a couple other finishes against Alex Nicholson and Chao Alankar. Before that, over in the Bellator scene, a couple losses were handed to him himself. As he made his way over to the UFC, losses to Andrei Arlovsky and Tanner Bozer. It just wasn't his night on either of those fights. Tanner, we know, could be dangerous when he has his head on, and Arlovsky's been known to steal those types of decisions. But he bounces back with the victory over Marcin Prachnio, which, I got to give a shout out to Lins there. That was an official play of mine. He was a slight underdog there. I think he was right around a plus 115 or whatnot, and he capitalized there, came through. He has underrated boxing, in my opinion. I expect him to be the aggressor in this matchup. So if this fight goes to a decision, I do lean Philipe Lins' way. It's really hard for me to side with OSP and any type of fight going to a decision because the volume is just not there. And I am taking Philipe Lins to get the job done here. And I will say, like I was just talking about, I think he'll just have more volume to put out there on the feet, and he'll win a decision victory here if he doesn't land a big shot, right? I mean, we're talking about a weight class that's up there. We tend to see the knockouts in these types of divisions. Two guys that are huge throwing bombs. Of course, anybody can be put out. But I'm leaning maybe more towards a decision here for Philipe Lins. A minus 230 line next to his name. I would like to see that line come down. I'd feel obviously a lot better about it if it was a minus 190, minus 185 line. But I think that people are on to the lack of action that OSP has thrown out in his fights. The split decision fight with Shogun wasn't really a good look for him. And if you take a look at how he's been performing, it hasn't been overly impressive. So give me Philipe Lins, and I'll even say there's more value on that minus 230 line. Just that's how unimpressed I've been with OSP as he creeps up to 40 years old. Without a doubt, one of the most intriguing matchups on this fight card, Jamall Emmers taking on Khusein Askhabov. Jamall Emmers hasn't been the most active fighter, but if you really know what his skill set is about, he is a dangerous fighter. He's a polished fighter, has a really nice jab, good boxing. He's a well-rounded fighter. He's a guy that now has 24 pro fights under his belt. He's dropped the ball in some big fights. If you remember, being finished, I do believe, on Dana White's Contender Series by the upset king in Julian Erosa. That was on Dana White's Contender Series. And Emmers was a big favorite going into that matchup, and he got finished off. But he went back to the drawing board, 4 victories in a row. Comes to the UFC, goes to a split decision with Giga Chikadze. We know that's an impressive thing to do. We know Giga's the real deal. Defeats Vince Cachero. After that, it's kind of hard to judge Vince Cachero because although he hasn't been winning very often, he's been fighting very high-level opponents, very, very dangerous opponents. So it's kind of hard to gauge Vince there. But Pretty Boy did show up in that fight. And then in his last fight, he did take another L, and that was against Pat Sabatini. He got caught with that early heel hook. Now, the UFC newcomer, Askhabov, has been known to throw some wild attacks like a heel hook out there. He's a well-rounded fighter. Training at American Top Team and Tiger Muay Thai. I like his striking. He's very relaxed. He's very calm in there with his striking, but he explodes at the right moments. And I think he's going to have some success in the UFC. I like his grappling as well. I mean, you take a look at his resumes. There's all types of subs scattered all around. So whether or not you think he's fighting the highest level of competition, you still got to admire and respect that he's going out there and he's finishing these guys off. Look, speak of a heel hook, pulled off a heel hook against Edelson, Teixeira there, an anaconda choke against Arbi, Movsarov, hit a flying knee against his last opponent. So a lot of diverse finishes from him. He also has a brother that is a dangerous fighter as well. He is a Chechnyan fighter who's 28 years old. You take a look at his Instagram. So if you're not familiar with what he's about, I mean, he's a big star on the other side of the world. 3.9 million followers. A lot of people are going to be anticipating his UFC debut here. And I believe he's shoulder to shoulder with his brother there, with my brother. And you keep an eye on his brother maybe to potentially make some noise in the future. But again, I've liked breaking down tape on this guy. I think he's a fun fighter to watch. I think that this is a matchup of two highly skilled opponents here. Like I said, Jamall Emmers, very, very talented as well. Jamall Emmers is going to be a little bit more of the refined striker, probably throwing more straight punches, using his boxing a little bit more so. Well, on the other hand, Askhabov will probably throw some more wild attacks. He'll be doing the drunken, what do you call that? The drunken master, kind of just lollygagging his opponent to sleep there before he throws a spinning attack, throws some wild hooks. Break down tape on him and you'll enjoy it because he's a fun fighter to watch. But when you see him hitting pads over at Tiger Muay Thai or even putting that work in at American Top Team like we just saw, this guy has some pop on his shots. And I'm going to be siding with the UFC newcomer and Askhabov here. I do think that Emmers is a serious test. I think that Emmers is quite possibly the highest caliber opponent that Askhabov has ever faced, but my gut's telling me that Askhabov is going to show up here, hold his own in the striking department, and maybe mix some things up down on the mat as well. So you keep an eye on all that, and this is a fight that should be exciting here. But again, let me be very clear. Jamall Emmers is a very talented fighter, and if you're not up to par on what he's been about, like I said, he hasn't been extremely active, but he's a fighter that can go out here. He's 33 years old, right around the prime of his career, and he might be hungry. We got to see how he looks at the weigh-ins and see how he looks this fight week. Jamall Emmers is talented, but give me the Chechnyan, the UFC newcomer, is 23-0, Khusein Askhabov to get the job done. And we take a look at the betting line where Askhabov is a -125. It's essentially a pick'em fight, so I will say there's more value in Askhabov. Being that it's a pick'em and I'm liking him here, more value on his line there. Lina Länsberg taking on Mayra Bueno Silva. Mayra, she's been looking good recently. 2 victories in a row. Took out Stephanie Egger with that armbar. A little bit of a controversial ending there, but realistically, she locked it in. She got the job done. Took out Yanin Wu before that. And before that, she did taste the defeat, but it was against Manon Farot, so you guys know the deal there. Manon, a very high-caliber opponent. Mayra Bueno Silva, she has good Muay Thai. She's a good striker. And also showing to have good submission skills. She's a well-rounded fighter. Then you got Lina Länsberg. Let's cut to the chase. Lina Länsberg, about to be 41 years old. Kind of a meat and potato type of fighter. She'll hang on you in the clinch. She's shown to be strong there at times. We've seen her pull off a big upset back in the day against Macy Chiasson, which she's been very inactive because that was only her 4th fight removed, and that was 3.5 years ago, averaging a little bit more than a fight a year. 3 losses in a row. Lost to Sarah McMahon, Penny Kianzad, and Carol Rosa just recently. Kind of surprised the UFC's even letting her hang around here. I think Mayra shows up and just shows to be a step above here as she creeps into the prime of her career. She'll have a 1-inch reach advantage. Nothing really going on there. An inch shorter with a 1-inch reach advantage does Silva have. She's just a more talented fighter. She's been very composed on the feet, and I like Bueno Silva to get the job done. She's a -450 favorite. Pretty high line there. You going to throw that in a 2-team parlay, or what are you guys doing with that? You guys let me know. Comment below. You mixing some action on Silva there. A little bit of a high line. Is anybody targeting a dog line and plus 345 around that range there on a Lina Länsberg? Maybe this fight plays out closely. Maybe Lina can hold her against the cage, make it an ugly fight. I'll say that Silva avoids that and is just more polished and lands those cleaner shots. Silva. The future UFC Hall of Famer Jim Miller taking on Alexander Hernandez. Major tip of the hat to Jim Miller. If you actually take a dive into his accolades, you'll realize how solid of a fighter Jim Miller has been throughout the years. It's crazy to think. I mean, I just remember him being a perennial top 10 lightweight fighter way back in the day. We're talking about over a decade ago or so. He's still out here getting W's in the octagon, coming in as an underdog consistently as of recently. People underestimating him because of his age, still going out there getting the job done, finishing these young up-and-comers. And now he gets a fighter in Alexander Hernandez, who's really not a young up-and-comer these days. I mean, he's 30 years old. He's been in the octagon a good amount of times now, kind of a veteran in his own right here. I like this matchup a lot. Jim Miller is going to be the underdog here, and there's definitely something that's worth noting. Jim Miller coming in with the Jonathan Taylor Thomas haircut. Shout out to the old Jonathan Taylor Thomas, if you guys remember him from the 90s. I mean, Jim Miller's bangs are on fleek, and that could be a major problem for Alexander Hernandez, who's probably coming in, with a typical buzz cut, pops, throwing you on a stool in the garage and just hitting you up with the even number across the top, one of those types of cuts. But on a serious note, Alexander Hernandez, we know he's a very powerful fighter, made a huge splash on his UFC debut, knocking out Beneil Dariush. Alexander Hernandez has been a very interesting fighter. Let's go over some things here. Alexander Hernandez has victories over Beneil Dariush, OAM, Olivier Aubin-Mercier. We know he's left the UFC, but has still shown that he's a very talented fighter, having a lot of success over there. Of course, Donald Cerrone bent Hernandez over his knee and gave him the paddle, and really taught him a lesson, if you guys remember that fight. Bounces back with a robbery over Trinaldo, which there was about 3 significant strikes thrown that entire fight. Gets knocked out by Dober. And you take a look at his only recent W's, and they're against lower level fighters, Mike Breeden and Chris Grutzmacher. So is Alexander Hernandez really worthy of this line that's next to his name? Let's go take a look at that on Bovada.lv, where you'll see that Alexander Hernandez is a minus 240 right now against Jim Miller. I find that pretty interesting. Jim Miller keeps getting underestimated. People are thinking that he's washed up because of his age, but he goes out there. He's durable. He's well-rounded. He can grapple. He can strike. And I don't know how much faith I have in Hernandez here. He looked very good early on against Billy Q and kind of broke down. We saw him get bloodied up, and he started to wilt in that fight. And eventually, what was finished, it was a standing TKO. And Jim Miller definitely has that type of ability, in my opinion. He's uber confident. He's gonna go in here, eating fresh eggs from his farm. Eating fresh meat that he hunted himself. I mean, the guy is just doing his thing, man, still up there in age. And I'm going to be picking the dog here. I'm taking Jim Miller. He's just shy of 40 years old. I don't care. Alexander Hernandez is just a little bit too flaky for my liking. And Jim Miller is a fighter that just continues to deliver. So give me Jim Miller here. And obviously, you guys know that I feel there's more value on a plus 190 line next to Miller's name than touching a minus 240 line next to Hernandez. Now, of course, is there a chance that Hernandez puts it together, uses his youth and his explosiveness to get the job done? Yeah, I mean, there's a chance that happens, but give me Jim Miller. Give me the seasoned veteran, the poised fighter in Jimbo. Give me Jimbo. And I'm going to say, does Jimbo get a finish here? Jimbo has the ability to get a finish. If the pace really picks up in this match here, Jimbo can land some shots and potentially hurt Hernandez, bloody him up, maybe pulls off some type of sub. There's that type of ability from Jim, in my opinion, for sure. William Knight taking on Marcin Prachnio. 2 lower level fighters, if we're cutting to the chase here. 2 lower level light heavyweight fighters, but at the same time, 2 fun fighters that really go out there and go out on their shield. They're a little sloppy, but it makes to be a fun fight when you see them go out there and throw down. They're either getting knocked out or they'll even go out there and they'll try to deliver a finish in their own way. I like this matchup. I think it's going to be a fun fight. They're 2 fighters that it's hard to have any real faith in my opinion. William Knight at times has looked really good. I mean, you think about that fadeaway knockout that he had. It might have been over Fabio Charant, where he had a completely straightened arm and just literally hit him with this weird straight hook and put him out. I mean, he's absolutely jacked up. I mean, he's a giant of a man. He's a power lifter. You see him here. I mean, absolutely shredded, absolutely jacked. Breaking down tape on him earlier today. I mean, you're watching him in the cage, and there's not a lot of men that have his physique. at the top of the game. Let's be honest, and that's saying something. And I don't necessarily think that that's saying something in a positive manner. If there's not a lot of fighters that have that physique, it's maybe because it's not the most ample physique to have when you're fighting MMA. His gas tank tends to hold up, although, and his fight against Devin Clark, he seemed to slow down a bit and was eventually finished in that third round, got cracked with the shot, got finished. And his fight against Maxim Grishin, that was a fight that was extremely suspect. I really, really wonder where William Knight's head was at in that match. It looks like he was out of it from the moment the first bell rang. So that's something that you have to really be careful about. You're talking about a fighter that has some talent, and he's a fun fighter to watch. But then you're talking about a guy that's a little bit of a mental case, in my opinion. We know that William Knight got into the game late. He had that big victory on Dana White's Contender Series against the tough wrestler there. Felt some early adversity. Ended up reversing Cody Brundage there, and eventually finished him in the first round. And the way that he was flattened out and the way that he got up. I think he grabbed a baseball grip, grabbed Brundage's hands and just ripped him off and got up and eventually got his own TKO there. I mean, that was impressive. Got the victory over Alexa K. Moore in his UFC debut. He's had his moments, was able to stifle Alonzo Menafield against the cage for a decision. I mean, he's shown some things. Marcin Prachnio coming off a loss to Philipe Lins. I talked about how that was an official play of mine before that. 2 victories over Ike Villanueva and Khalil Roundtree. Even though Prachnio showed up in those 2 matches and put himself in a position where he's actually able to hang around in the UFC, because this is a fighter that probably should have been on his way out, I have no faith in him still at that. Even though he showed up in those 2 spots, I'm not overly impressed with those 2 fights there. And although I don't say this with a lot of confidence, I'm taking William Knight here. He's just a little bit more explosive and athletic, and I could see him landing some big shots. Prachnio is definitely there to be hit. But understand that Prachnio is a big boy and he can push the pace. He's a scrappy guy. He'll probably continue to go and move forward. And if William Knight has one of his mental lapses in the cage, I have no doubt that Prachnio can take this fight. That this is a fight that could really go either way. I don't have a lot of faith in either man. So with that being said, we'll take a look at the betting line, where you'll see it's basically a flat pick 'em with a very slight lean on William Knight at -115. And I'll say there's more value on William Knight, but I'm going to be clear. I really don't have faith in either of these fighters. I think anything could happen in there. We could see either man taking a nap, or either man just looking bad and just getting outworked. I think this fight can go a variety of ways, and not a lot of faith here. 2 unpredictable fighters. A main card heavyweight matchup: Josh Parisian taking on Jamall Pogues. Jamall just coming off Dana White's Contender Series. He kind of had a funny personality on the show. If you guys remember, kind of arrogant a little bit, was expecting to get the contract. Not that he had an overly impressive performance. I mean, he did showcase his boxing. He controlled the fight. But you guys know how Dana White's Contender Series goes. I mean, you really got to go out there and look to finish your opponent, and that's not necessarily what Pogues did. But he had an interesting backstory. Forget the exact details, but I do believe that he was struggling financially. There was some type of family story involved, and of course, you mix that with the fact that the heavyweight division, it can always use some new talent, and I think that he was definitely worthy of being signed. I think that he can put on some entertaining fights in this division with his boxing. We put some striking matchups together. Now, this won't necessarily be that type of fight. Josh Parisian, we know that he's a sloppy fighter, kind of relies on his size and his grappling at times, but a fighter that I'm not really overly impressed with, if we're being quite honest here. So I do think that this is a stylistic clash in the sense that Pogues should have a clear advantage with his boxing. I really think that he could outpoint Parisian nicely on the feet, whereas I really believe that Parisian needs to make things ugly and just throw the kitchen sink at Pogues, shake things up. Maybe he gets on top of him down on the mat and tries to pull off something ugly there. That's kind of how I'm looking at this fight. I think that Pogues is going to get the job done. I'm thinking a unanimous decision, 30-27. I'm going to give Parisian the benefit of the doubt and say that he survives this fight. Josh Parisian coming off a victory. If he's able to get the job done here, that he'd be on a 2-fight winning streak. I think that'd be really a feather in his cap. I think that this is a fighter that, maybe I'm being a little harsh on him, but this is a fighter that is maybe not the type of guy that I would expect to be on a 2-fight winning streak in the UFC. So really seems like a solid guy. He's a family guy. Seems like a great guy. I would be happy for him if he wins. But Pogues, she should be a step above on the feet and should really be able to outpoint him there. So let's go take a look on Bovada.lv and see what we're talking about here. Jamal is a minus 250 with Parisian being a plus 200, a 2-to-1 underdog there. It's another one of those lines. We have quite a few of these types of lines throughout this card. I'm not sure if I'm as comfortable with Pogues here at this line compared to some of those other fights that we talked about, but I think that the line does carry some merit. I think that Pogues is the more talented fighter. And, I'm not going to sit here and tell you there's more value on a 2-to-1 dog line on Parisian here. I'm going to say there's even more value in that minus 250 line on Pogues. That's just kind of where I'm at with Parisian. I'm just not really a believer in his skill sets. So earlier we talked about how this card is lacking. Maybe one of the easiest ways to notice that is you take a look at the co-main event, and we're talking about Zach Pauga taking on Jordan Wright. Now, yes, this fight has all the makings to be an entertaining fight, which is always interesting, right? Because when we talk about a fight card not being stacked or not really delivering when it's coming to your town, Dana White, which you guys know I got nothing but love and respect for Uncle Dana, but you know Uncle Dana is as good of a salesman as there is, and he'll try to manipulate and twist the point by saying, oh, you never know how good a fight's going to be until it happens. And he kind of tries to say that in the sense that, yeah, a fight may still end up being very entertaining, but when you talk about who the men are and the level of interest and who the fighters are, I mean, this is that type of example here. I don't think that many people are going to be excited for a co-main event spot of Zach Pauga and Jordan Wright, but this fight has all the makings to be a fun fight, and I think someone's getting knocked out here. Anytime Jordan Wright steps in there, you know that he's coming to take his opponent's head off. He has a funny type of style. He has that karate type style. I mean, he puts it all on the line. And then you talk about his opponent. We know that he's a heavy-handed fighter. Who's coming down from the heavyweight division to the light heavyweight division here. He's coming off a knockout loss against Kamaru Usman's brother, Muhammad Usman. It was really flatlined in that fight in the Ultimate Fighter finale, and in fact, he was the favorite going into that matchup there. So he comes down from the heavyweight division, and Jordan Wright is coming up to the light heavyweight division from the middleweight division. So that's something to keep an eye on. I want to see how these men look at the weigh-ins. Both men 6'2". Jordan Wright, in fact, will have a 1-inch reach advantage. And, if Jordan Wright's going to get the job done here, I think he needs to simmer down a little bit, maybe try to outpoint Pauga a little bit, and not go out there just trying to storm him too much, because I could see him getting hit with the counter shot. Jordan Wright coming off a knockout loss to Dusko Todorovic. That's not a good look. Was submitted by Marc-Andre Barriault before that, knocked out by Bruno Silva before that, and then before that, he had the epic victory over Jamie Pickett, and then knocked out by Buckley before that. So he's either going out there, he's finishing you, or he's being finished, which is obviously more likely. And I think that's the way this fight's going to go. I think that Zach's going to land a big shot here, and I think he's going to crack Jordan Wright and get a finish. I think he'll redeem himself after losing in the Ultimate Fighter against Muhammad Usman, losing in the Ultimate Fighter finale. There's a reason why he was going into that fight as a favorite. I mean, people do respect his skill set. He has shown some things on tape, and I'll say that he uses his boxing to crack Wright with a solid shot and get the job done. So let's take a look at the betting line on this co-main event that's involved with Jordan Wright, the Beverly Hills Ninja. Zach is going to be a minus 285 favorite with the comeback on Jordan Wright at plus 230. Another high line here on the favorite Zach, minus 285 line. I mean, does it really surprise any of us? I mean, Jordan Wright, a fighter that is really, if we're being quite honest, not a UFC caliber fighter. I think he gets knocked out here and potentially gets cut from the UFC. Shout out to him for always being an exciting guy. But the hands are very frequently low. He's vulnerable to be tagged with shots, tagged with boxing. His chin is there to be hit, and I think he gets finished here. So again, another high line, so it's hard for me to sit here and say there's value on all these high lines, because you guys know they all can't come through. But, I mean, it's really hard for me to sit here and tell you there's value on a plus 230 line on Jordan Wright. That's how I'm feeling about it. It's one of those types of fights, man. It's an ugly one. It's an ugly co-main event. Give me Zach to get the job done via knockout. Check the lines on the inside the distance and the unders and finish props in this match here. Hey guys, real quick, if you're looking to work with me for my official plays, do not hesitate to reach out to me. I got my email, my Instagram, Twitter scrolling below. Shoot me a DM, shoot me an email. I'll give you guys my pricing there. And also, if you're looking to sign up to a new sportsbook, Bovada.lv is my favorite sportsbook. Reach out to me. I'll give you my referral link. You'll get an added bonus to your account. and I will give you a free betting package for any card that you guys desire. You're probably going to want to use it this weekend because I think we got some solid spots. I already have 3 official plays locked in. All right, guys, so don't hesitate to reach out to me. Hello. We got some high caliber women's mixed martial arts taking place in the main event. We have the future Hall of Famer Jessica Andrade stepping in on short notice to take on the surging newcomer, the very young Erin Blanchfield. Well, maybe I shouldn't say newcomer, but you guys catch my drift. Erin Blanchfield bursted on the scene. Let's see here, about a year and 4 months ago. Went in there, took out Sarah Alpar. Her real come-out fight was the Miranda Maverick fight. She was a big underdog. She went in there and absolutely dominated Miranda Maverick with her wrestling. Since then, victories over J.J. Aldrich and Molly McCann. 2 striking-based fighters. We know that Aldrich is a fighter that very much favors her boxing. The same could be said about Molly McCann. And Erin went in there and exploited them down on the mat like she likes to do. Erin Blanchfield really has some high-caliber grappling. And I personally believe that she is one of the most promising fighters coming through women's mixed martial arts today. So, I mean, what a test that's going to be in front of her and Jessica Andrade. Jessica, coming off a very impressive performance against Lauren Murphy, went in there and beat her down just 3 weeks ago. Now, we want to talk about the change of opponent here. Talia Santos, more of a grappling-based fighter. I mean, Santos has some striking, but Talia Santos has really shown to be an impressive grappler. She's very big. She's very strong. I have a feeling that Erin Blanchfield is coming into this fight with her grappling being very, very sharpened up. We already know that that's her base, but I think it's going to be very, very sharp here. And this is going to be a striking versus grappling type of match. I think that's another fight on the card that's a striking versus grappling type of match. And yes, I say that knowing that Jessica Andrade is very well-rounded and can wrestle and grapple herself. I've seen it live. I've been cage side for fights of hers where I've seen her absolutely demolish her opponents with ground and pound, or just working the ground and pound, peppering up her opponents, controlling them down on the mat. We've seen her slam fighters on their heads, like we talked about with the Rose Namajunas fight. She's a very powerful fighter. So again, I do understand that Jessica can grapple herself, but when I say this is a striking versus grappling matchup, it's for the sheer fact that I really don't see Erin Blanchfield having enough success on the feet to pull off a victory there. And I really feel she has to have success with her grappling. Where on the other hand, although Jessica is polished there as well, I'm not really so sure that I see Jessica Andrade having enough success and just a straight up heavy grappling pace to fight against a girl like Erin Blanchfield. I really think that Blanchfield will get the better of Jessica there. That's my personal opinion. I've been very pleased with what I've seen from Erin Blanchfield. So that's kind of how I'm looking at this fight here. There's definitely an X factor, and we got to talk about the fact that Jessica's taken this fight on short notice. She just fought recently, so obviously she was going into that fight in great shape. She put on a phenomenal performance. I do wonder what she was up to the last couple of weeks. I would definitely say it's a little bit of a disadvantage in the fact that she didn't know she had this fight up until just a couple days ago. I just couldn't imagine that she was sharpening up her tools just as much as she would have in the last couple of weeks if she already knew she had this matchup. Where on the other hand, Erin knew she was training for the biggest fight of her career in a main event fight against the #1 ranked flyweight fighter and Talia Santos. So just, you got to understand that. Of course, the champ, Valentina Shevchenko, in my opinion, the GOAT of women's MMA. She has a big fight in front of her coming up against Alexa Grasso. That's a great fight. Santos is a stud. She had some visa issues. You got Manon Fiorot in the mix. You got Jessica right here. She's bursted on the scene in the flyweight division as of recently. Caitlin Chikogi in a stud. Alexa Grasso. This division has really rounded out. There's some solid talent all around. Lauren Murphy. Let's talk about her for a second, right? Lauren Murphy is a fighter that really favors her grappling and her strength. She takes advantage of fighters that are kind of lacking there. And against Jessica, she was just absolutely beaten down. She couldn't pull anything off as far as the wrestling went, any takedowns or whatnot. And Jessica was able to tee off on her and just really butcher her up on the feet. And I think that Erin Blanchfield is a better fighter than Lauren Murphy, I should say. I think that when it comes to that department, Erin Blanchfield is a lot more promising, and I think there's way more potential for Blanchfield to solidify some takedowns and work her magic down on the mat. Erin will have a 6-inch reach advantage, but nothing really too crazy going on there, in my opinion. Jessica Andrade is consistently at a disadvantage when it comes to that, and she knows how to close the distance. She's a little Mike Tyson. She's bobbing and weaving. She closes that distance, and she lands big shots, and there's no reason why she can't go out there and do that against a young fighter in Blanchfield who has not really proven to us really anything significant on the feet. Okay, so let me cut to the chase here, right, guys? I've been a little bit back and forth with who I was going to pick here. You guys know I got a lot of respect for Andrade, and I think that she's a nightmare for just about anybody in the division. But you know what? This girl Blanchfield has been very impressive to me. We talked about the fact that she was training for this date. I like the fact that she's a little bit more of the naturally larger fighter here. It's a 5-round fight, and I think that there's some real potential for Blanchfield to drag Andrade into the deep waters, and for her to potentially put Andrade in a very compromised position and maybe put herself in a position to end the fight. I think that there is that type of potential. We saw Valentina Shevchenko just put Andrade in that crucifix and finish the fight down on the mat. Again, we're talking about an extremely high caliber fighter, but still, it's just worth noting. This girl Blanchfield is very promising, and I think there's that type of potential. But I think that she'll dig deep in this fight, and I think that she'll take 3 of the 5 rounds. I'm going to be taking the underdog here, and Erin Blanchfield. I'm very excited to see how this fight plays out. I mean, this is an extreme test for the youngster Blanchfield. We've heard nothing but rave reviews coming from Erin Blanchfield's side of things. I mean, you listen to the Joe Rogan Experience, you hear how they talk about her. You listen to some of the people in the fight game that are around her, and there's just nothing but rave reviews coming from her side. Let's take a look at how this line has been trending. We'll take a look at DraftKings. Jessica opening up at a minus 180. We see it dipping up a little bit, but then coming back down to a minus 190, and then it's currently sitting at a minus 165. So you guys know what that means. We got action coming in on Erin Blanchfield, touching plus 140 on DraftKings as of right now, where she was just a plus 160 just yesterday. So we got action coming in on Blanchfield. I think that people are looking into some of the facts that we just talked about, the preparation, the size, the grappling, and we'll see which way that the line continues to trend. But I'm going to be taking the underdog here in Erin Blanchfield. I just think that there's more value on her line. I think this is an extremely close fight. I think that this line should be a little bit closer to an even line. I mean, if you want to give Andrade that edge, I mean, just due to the work that she's put in the game, and how great she's looked as of recently, this weight class really looks like it suits her well. I understand that. I mean, you got to tip your hat to the fighter that has put in the work over the years. But I just think that Blanchfield's very promising, and I have a gut feeling that she will get some takedowns and she'll work some magic down on the mat. And I think that she drags Andrade into deep waters, and it takes 3 of 5 rounds if she doesn't put herself in a position to maybe capitalize and get a finish. So, yeah, more value on the dog line of Blanchfield, and I'm excited to see how that fight takes place. All right, guys, that's going to wrap up UFC Vegas 69. I hope you guys found this video beneficial for you guys placing your bets for the card. And, you guys know I appreciate you guys more than anything. Thank you guys for stopping by, hitting that like button, subscribing to the channel, catching me on my social media. It means the world to me. Appreciate all you guys hitting up the comment section below. And, as we part ways, as I talked about earlier, I hope you guys are seeing some of the little small tweaks I got going on with the channel. But like I said, I'll say it continuously, it's nothing what I've done so far. I've really got some big things brewing in the back, and I really think you guys are going to like what you see moving forward. For my parting words, I'm going to ask a favor of you guys, actually. I'm not going to go really deep here, but if you guys can do me a favor and comment below any recommendations, ideas, anything you could think of in regards to the channel. If you guys see what I got going on, they're all highly appreciated. So if you want to hit that comment section up and throw some recommendations my way, I definitely will take them into consideration. And I am pumped up. I'm using a very new program. As you guys see, I'm definitely going to be putting out a lot more content. It's not going to just be these weekly prediction videos. You're going to be seeing almost daily content coming from me. As far as any major news in regards to MMA, I'm going to be talking about it. I'll make it short and sweet when I do those videos, you know, little 5-minute videos, 10-minute videos, but you guys are going to consistently get the teller's thoughts on what's going on in the world of MMA. So hopefully you guys will be excited for that. Appreciate you guys more than you'll ever know. And you guys all have a beautiful week. And you guys know what time it is on Saturday. We got some fights to sit back and watch and to capitalize and make some money on. Signing out. Teller.
Welcome to the show. This is the MMA fortune teller. Yeah.
The MMA fortune teller.
The teller.